and welcome to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, the owner of Meraki Media Management. The End in Mind is a place where we come to share stories, tips, and strategies of many entrepreneurs, creatives, business owners, and just some people that aren't willing to live the traditional lifestyle. We talk about how to live outside of the box today and how to incorporate what really is important in your life to keep that end goal always in mind. Again, if you would like to reach out to me in any type of way, you can find me on Instagram at Meraki_media_management. And I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much and enjoy our show. What is up, party people? Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin. So excited to have you all here. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're a weekly listener, I am so grateful for you. And if you're a first-time listener, I am also so grateful for you. So I just wanted to express my gratitude for all of you filling into our podcast and, tuning into what we offer here at the End in Mind. It's really all about what is our end goal, what's actually important to us, and how can we start to create habits and patterns that align us back to that end goal. Because a lot of us here in society, in the world, right, we fall into these traps of what we should be, right? A lot of the past few podcast episodes that we put out with guests have talked about these shoulds, right? These overarching limiting beliefs that tend to hold us back. And a lot of them are society driven or personally driven, right? And it also stems from our identity. So today's topic is really going to be identity in your business. This is actually one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to pivot and offer different types of services, which you guys have heard about for the past few weeks now, which is our new Eclipse mentorship package. So today is going to be a little bit more of a storytelling episode, and I wanted to remind you guys that I will be starting to post on YouTube as well. So if you're more of a visual person, and even if you just prefer to listen to podcasts on YouTube, like on your TV or something, we do have a YouTube channel, which I'll link below for you all. And yeah, you can hang out with me over there. I'm going to be giving like exclusive content on YouTube, also around this identity theory. So when I was in college, I studied communications, which required us to take different persuasion classes. And a lot of those classes actually started with understanding identity and the psychology around identity. And it's funny enough, like one of the reasons why I wanted to become an entrepreneur was so that I could have a fluid identity, right? Where I didn't fixate on one thing that I had to be, air quotes, had or should, right? Coming back to those shoulds. I actually ended up creating it myself, right? I literally created exactly what I didn't want in my life through my first business. And I still have that business, and I do love that business, and I'm so grateful for that business because it taught me so much about myself, which now I'm able to share with you all. And this is something that I focus on a lot of my clients with in the Eclipse package, is really creating a business that you love, right? It's something that you actually want to do. It's your passion. It's not like a stressor or a pain in the ass when you have to hop on and do something for work. And this is exactly what I created, the monster that I created for myself in Meraki Media Management with my social media management business. And what had happened was I just overflowed myself. I was serving 20 plus management clients at a time, running a team at the age of 25. I was getting little sleep, rarely able to take care of myself out of pure necessity of my clients needing me at all times. Again, boundary things that I hadn't set up prior. Like when you go all into starting a business and it's extremely successful right off the bat, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because I didn't have the knowledge or the self-awareness in order to set the boundaries that I needed to create a prosperous business that also aligned with my overall lifestyle goals, which is a lot of the reasons why we start a business: for freedom, for independence, for fluidity of our lifestyle. Like all of these things are very important to us as entrepreneurs. But we can, and most entrepreneurs do this, they create a business that basically enjails them to their business, to their laptop, to their phone, right? And in today's society, living in the online world and being an online entrepreneur is actually very normal, which is funny. When I first started this business, it was far from normal. And the fact that the world has changed so much in these past few years, it actually puts more pressure on us as entrepreneurs to show up online every day. Like when I was doing this 4 years ago, no one was hounding me to get on Instagram every day, except for my own self. So now you get on Instagram and everybody's saying how you need to create reels and you need to do all of this stuff. It's a lot of pressure, and that's just not in alignment with my identity anymore. I literally had connected my business to my identity. If I had a bad day in business, I had a bad day in my personal life. And I want to make this clear because we are online entrepreneurs. We have multi-dynamic passions, and our businesses are so closely aligned with our lives that it is normal for that to happen at times, but it shouldn't happen every time, and it shouldn't have been affecting me to the level that it was. And this was coming out in many of my relationships, like with my family, with my partner, Sean, with my friends even. Like they're all like, you're working all the time. Where is this coming from? Like, why can't we hang out with you? I would use work as an excuse sometimes just to like create a boundary for myself where I could have like 5 minutes to myself on the weekends. It was really insane thinking back on it. And it was very harmful for my mental health because in return, I had secluded myself because I didn't want people to know or see me as this person that couldn't handle it, right? That felt like me failing. I should be able to handle this. I built this business. I worked my ass off. It's extremely successful. To me, it seemed like an opportunity. And how could I walk away from that? These were the questions that I was asking myself constantly. And then when a client would leave, instead of me feeling like excited for them to leave, this was early on, I would feel this extreme loss. Like I had literally just lost a limb and I made them, unhappy with the service, even if that wasn't true. Most of the time that wasn't true at all. We just weren't able to provide them with what they needed. And maybe if I only had 5 clients, I would have been able to provide them with what they needed. So I had gotten caught up in this masculine hustle culture that most entrepreneurs get caught up in. And I knew it was time to pivot for me when I started using words like I'm a failure. Quite literally, I sat on the couch at the beach with my family crying because I had disappointed a client and they were really unhappy with me. And a few weeks later, they ended up firing me. And that made me feel like I was a failure. I wasn't good enough. I didn't show up to the best ability that they expected me to. I wasn't able to produce what they expected me to. And I had failed. And that was a really shitty feeling. And then I started to realize, with luckily my amazing coaches, that I had gotten so caught up with solidifying my business to my identity that I now needed to create boundaries within myself to understand that if a client isn't happy with something, it's not always my fault, right? Especially in social media. I mean, there's many factors that fall into this. But regardless, if a client wasn't happy with my work, most people would just be able to say, oh, okay, whatever, like not a big deal. For me, it was so intense, especially when I started to realize these relationships were changing. And these relationships were changing because I was changing. It was a natural effect. It wasn't an overnight thing. It just naturally started to change. And I wanted to white knuckle the hell out of this business. Like, I wanted to get it back into control. I wanted to have more management clients. I wanted Meraki Media Management to be one of the most successful social media management businesses ever. Then I just realized, at what expense, right? How far was I willing to put this pressure on myself? I already struggle with blood pressure, high blood pressure, and my coach and I have talked about it. It's funny, the rhetoric that's used there, because literally I put so much pressure on myself. It makes sense that my blood pressure is high, right? And it's now hurting my health. Like, I needed to step back and look at what was going to make me happy, what was going to help me help my clients, right? And that was space and time. And as I digested this whole situation, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of navigation, a lot of scarcity, a lot of fear, all of these things came up. I mean, on a daily basis, you guys, like, this is me talking financial fear that was honestly at times like didn't need to be there. It's unnecessary, but we in our heads just feed these stories, right? So you are not alone if you are currently struggling with a storyline that you are unable to navigate. Like, this took me at times I'm still navigating it, right? This has taken me a good 3 months to really lay it all out there for you guys on how this transition happened, which is why I'm really excited about this episode, because it had nothing to do with my clients. My clients were amazing, right? I just was no longer fulfilled with the service that I was offering. And that's because I am so much more than social media. I have so much more to offer. I have a lot of knowledge in marketing. I went to school for public relations. I've gotten people on TV channels, and I've myself have become a very eloquent speaker, right? Like, I know what I have to offer, but because I had so closely connected my identity to being a social media manager, these words kept coming up. I am a failure. I have failed. I've failed my clients. I've failed my family. I mean, it was so intense. And this morning, I was actually speaking with my coach about this language, and she called this my inner critic, which I wanted to share with you guys, because if you have an inner critic that is speaking to you in this language, it's not always a bad thing. I've talked about this before. It's like that inner drive, right? If we didn't have an inner critic, we might not have a drive, because then there would be no reason to do anything, right? There would be no scarcity. There would be no fear. And we could just sit around and do nothing all day. But I had let my inner critic become overly productive, right? I had let my inner critic control me, my thoughts, my life, how I approached my business, all of these things. And as I've made this pivot, it has not been the easiest transition, you guys, like, at all. This crap is hard, and that's why I do this podcast, because what I knew for my end in mind was that I'm not going to be a social media manager for the rest of my life. This is not what I want to do. This is not something I'm honestly, truthfully passionate about. I love marketing. I love people. But that's not always social media, right? That can be so many things. But I had so closely and so marginalized myself into this one portion of the market. And this all comes from education that we have been passed on from other coaches. It's like when people say finding your niche, how are you going to actually make money and start a business? Well, what about happiness, right? Like, what if I told you guys, which is actually what I have right now, I have an amazing business. I have my management business of about 5 clients currently. I have my mentorship business, which is growing. I have amazing family and friends. And I don't need to be afraid. Like, I can be okay and content with where I am at right now. And that doesn't mean that I'm not driven or I'm not doing good enough or I'm not climbing towards the next goal. Sometimes being content is actually what we need, especially when we are entrepreneurs. And again, this is something that's not talked about ever. It's what's your niche? How are you going to make money? What's your next goal? When's your next campaign? It's always what is next when we can't even cater to, right? I couldn't even cater to or be the person that I wanted to be for those clients that I had right then because I wasn't able to be. I literally had to have this experience in order to show up as my best version of myself, right? For me to have all of these awarenesses. So every single thing that we experience is a journey, is a learning opportunity. It doesn't always feel that way as we're in it because damn straight I was so pissed off that I had to deal with this at times. Frustrated that I didn't have a business that was just running on its own, right? And we have all of these expectations that we build up for ourselves in our heads. But what if we went in just trying to be happy? I don't know if you guys have heard this audio on Instagram, but I've been like obsessed with it. I don't even know if I've used it yet. I'm pretty sure it's one of these amazing leadership speakers. And they're talking about like, what if I just said like, yeah, I'm just doing me, you know? I think she's like, somebody said something along the lines of, what are you going to do next? So what's your next big goal? And she's like, I'm just doing me. I just want to be happy. And that is how I feel right now. Like, I still have income coming in. I still am able to fund my team and my current business. I'm currently in the process of a pivot where I'm thinking about creating community and starting, networking groups and creating a space online where we can actually communicate. So it's not just a one-sided listening, right? In this podcast or in YouTube. Like, I want to hear what you guys have to say about these conversations. I want to hear your point of view. That's why I started this business. That's why I started this podcast, because I care so much about people. And that's really my end in mind goal, right? Like, that's really why I did this, because I know that I have knowledge that can help people. And when we can remember our end in mind, even if we're so, stuck in the niche, stuck in the masculine, stuck in the shoulds, if we come back to our feminine, that's like, hey, no, listen, our end goal is really just to help people. Like, how much peace is that? How much more peaceful is that than operating in this hustle and bustle, next thing, scarcity, next thing? Like, it's a terrible pattern rather than just being happy, right? And what's so interesting is when my partner, Sean, was getting his new job and he was talking about how a lot of people at his previous company were, complacent and things like that. This reignited that scarcity in my brain. Even when he's just talking about himself and it had nothing to do with me whatsoever, me as a highly sensitive, I pick up on everything, right, that everyone says. And then I somewhat align that into my belief, right? That's what I was allowing myself to do. And this is like next level of, I would say, starting to unravel these beliefs. I just knew, like, I'm not complacent. I am a hard-ass worker. I am constantly doing something new. I'm constantly expanding my brain, my healing journey. I'm sharing it with you all. I'm sharing it on these other platforms. I'm communicating with people on a daily basis. I am not complacent. But society has told us that if we're not reaching 10K months and, speaking to all of these people across the world and, being the best possible version of ourselves, like, we're not enough. We're not good enough. We're failures. And I'm just done with that stupid belief. I'm just done. I want to be happy. I don't want to constantly be looking at the next thing. I want to be happy in the present moment. And I hope that today's, podcast episode inspires you all to look at what you have currently, right? Because even when I went into this scarcity, it basically felt like my management business had dissolved, which is so far from true. Like, I still have 5 amazing clients that I'm catering to, and I love working with them. So it has nothing to do with that, right? It's just in my head. I'm telling myself these false narratives in order to nail that coffin deeper in my brain that I'm a failure, right? That inner critic. So now I've decided to take my inner critic after today's session with my lovely coach, Aoife, who also had a podcast episode with us. If you guys want to go back and listen to that episode, she's amazing. I'm going to take my inner critic and I'm going to let my intuition guide me to my clients, to my next speaking engagement, to more people that I enjoy connecting with and grabbing coffee with and expanding my network with. All of these things is what I'm in the process of doing. And it doesn't have to be done right now. It doesn't have to be done tomorrow. It doesn't have to be done at the end of this month. It's all going to happen in divine timing. And I'm trusting in that because I'm trusting in myself. And I'm choosing myself over my inner critic, over the scarcity. And that is what I want for all of you as well. Come back to your end in mind. Why do we do this in the first place? Why are we getting scarcity? Why are we living in this constant turmoil? Why are we enjailing ourselves to our businesses? It's our own decision, Like, we're aware of what we're doing. I was aware of what I was doing, but I still did it anyway. And I'm not going to let money, fear, greed, other people's beliefs, things that I hear on Instagram dictate how I live my life anymore. I'm going to be the dictator of my life. I'm going to be the dictator of my reactions. I'm going to be the dictator of how I design the life of my dreams. Because it's not going to be how everybody else is, right? That's why you guys come to this podcast. This is the untraditional lifestyle. It's not going to look like everybody else's life. It's going to look like your life. And that's going to be the beauty behind it. That's going to be the lesson that you needed to learn, right? That I needed to learn in order to project myself into the next level person that I'm going to become. So I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. We have some amazing episodes coming out for you all. Next week is actually a 2-parter. So stay tuned for that. You'll catch part 1 on my friend's episode, on my friend's podcast, which you guys will have all the information on Wednesday when part 2 comes out. Send me a DM if you want any juicy details on that to come. And yeah, as always, give us a little review if you feel called to. Shout me out on Instagram if you feel called to on any of the topics that we talked about today or in past episodes. It means so much to me. Like I said, I really want to get to a place where I can hear from you all eventually too. So keep that in mind as well. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to The End in Mind. I would like to remind you all, if you haven't yet reached out to me on Instagram, we are at Meraki_media_management. It will be in our show notes as well. If you would like to reach out to me, we always offer free coaching through Instagram based around our Instagram training and our business Instagram practices. If you need any type of support, please do not hesitate to reach out to me there. And we also offer several different types of consulting and training packages if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth tips. So thank you all for listening in, and of course, I want you all to keep the end in mind as you continue with your day and or work week. Have a great week, and I will see you all next time.